Hey there, fellas. We keep getting a bunch of nutty requests in from the viewers, which is nice. I have a lot of fun reading through them. And so here's one of the latest ideas. Someone suggested we try cutting an engine in half. We got to thinking, and well, simply cutting an engine in half isn't all that hard. You grab a grinder and off you go. So cutting the engine is not going to be a problem. But you know, we'd also like it to run after that. And so right here we've got this wonderful power plant. It runs, that we know for sure. And so now, without a second thought, we're going to dismantle it, take a big grinder and chop it. Well, I mean, we do have to make sure to preserve cylinders 1 and 2, so that they're in working condition. Well, and that means we have to avoid damaging the sleeves, the pistons, and all of that other jazz. Another thing for us to bear in mind is that there are a bunch of channels inside the engine block. Some of them will have to be either welded up or connected. It's hard to know for sure without cutting into it. Okay, so we cut the engine while preserving 2 of the cylinders. Also, we'll be cutting the crankshaft, the cylinder head, effectively turning a 4-cylinder engine into a 2-banger. From the looks of it, this is going to be pretty complicated. This is going to involve welding the crank, which of course is something that we've tried before. If we're cutting everything apart and leaving just cylinders 1 and 2, that'll mean we have to re-weld the flange that you bolt the flywheel onto. And that requires everything to be carefully centered, so that when it's done it all works properly. This is not going to be a simple task at all. Then again, we enjoy those. So let's get right to it. Fellas, big thanks for taking so many pictures with our merch. You want some drip like this for yourself? Then check out our latest collection of merch. We've got some trendy hoodies, some toasty vests, stylish hats and t-shirts, baseball caps to suit anybody's taste, mugs, stickers, and of course some goodies for your cars. Air fresheners, license plate frames, document holders, key fobs. Hit the link in the description to get yourself some Garage54 goodness. Get yourself some merch and don't forget to use the code Garage54, which is good for a solid discount. We cut an engine in 2 and start the remaining half. Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian. This is all going in a rather interesting direction. So if we are to cut the engine block in half, well, we've decided that we'll be leaving cylinders 1 and 2. That's where we've got the chains, the oil pump, the distributor. We'd much prefer for all of that to stay right where it is, in order to reduce the amount of headaches. And so we'll be cutting off the rear half then, but even that's not going to be trouble-free. You see, cutting the crankshaft in half is going to result in the rear end of the motor, where we've got the flywheel, is also where we've got this sort of seal next to the flange for mounting the flywheel. That's what keeps the oil from leaking out of the engine block. Now, the main problem here is that we won't have the castings to install this cap. Not to mention that washer on the crankshaft where the flywheel sits is going to have to be cut off. Yeah, the crank is going to require some love with a welder. And that's not even the end of the story. The head needs to be chopped. And that also contains a bunch of channels for oil and coolant. It pretty much mirrors what we've got inside the engine block. And we would prefer to somehow leave the oil galleries intact and have a working lubrication system. Then there's also the camshaft. Man, cutting all of this is the easy part. But assembling a working engine is going to be way more difficult. And let's not forget another thing that we're going to try not to touch, which are the bolts for securing the cylinder head. If we cut straight through the middle, we'll destroy the channels and lose some of the bolt holes, meaning we're better off cutting right at the edge. Are you ready to do some precision cutting? we'll place a level and then... What? A level? What do you have eyes for? Oh yeah, I forgot that you're blind. And after all of that complicated stuff, we get to the easy bit, which is modifying the intake and exhaust manifolds. It all seems pretty straightforward, but I mean, it's always easier said than done, so enough with the chit-chat. Let's chop this engine up and try starting it. Here's where we're at with this, fellows. Now, I'm not gonna say that this is a walk in the park, but it is slowly coming together. Now let's start with what is closest to me at the moment. This right here is our shortened cylinder head for 2 cylinders. Right here we've got this funhouse camshaft. The channel is welded up. We've made it so that everything up here gets as much lubrication as it will ever need. We've welded up this end of it, and everything that would have been running, dripping or trickling should stay inside and not find its way out. Instead, drip down into the crankcase. Now it's also the same story with the block, which is now a 2-cylinder block. Now it's much the same as on... For example, let's take an OCOM, which had a 2-cylinder engine from the factory. There the pistons moved together, and that of course had balancing shafts to keep it from shaking too hard. But here, I mean, in theory, the pistons should balance each other out. I mean, there will most certainly be some kind of imbalance, but hopefully it's not going to be too severe. The block, as you can tell, we've also welded up. All of the channels for oil and coolant have been done up in such a way so that there wouldn't be any leakage. It was a bit difficult to get the rear main seal on there that would keep the oil inside the block, but all in all, I think we did a pretty decent job. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. We've welded on some tabs for mounting the gearbox. Now we have to tend to the mounting points for the engine itself. It used to have some brackets welded on, but since the engine will be moving into a different position, We need to work out where to relocate them. And until we get this under the hood, there is no telling where to put them. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a compact little engine, and if the stock engine was good for about 64 horsepower, then after cutting it in half, well, it's not rocket science. 64 divided by 2. I suggest you guys work it out and write the answer in the comments. That's the projected horsepower figure then. Though the actual output might be a bit less, like 27 or something. It's all a mystery. And until we assemble it and go for a test drive, it'll remain so. As it is, it's a nice little package. It looks pretty good. Oh yeah, and here's another thing. Remember how I said we need to modify the manifolds? So we cut off a piece. Whatever we need to, we weld up. And it's the same deal with the exhaust mani. So we block off one part, weld up another, block off, weld, until we get the results we need. Okay, then let's slap all of it together. And after that, it'll be high time to try this engine out. Let's do this. Status report, my friends. Everything is looking great. I present to you this engineering marvel in the form of a detuned Lada engine. By detuned, of course, I mean that it has way less power now. We've got the 2-cylinder mill in the engine bay. We've completed the job of assembling it, fired it up, and now it's in there. It works, and now we get to the best part of this. It's time to commence the testing. What makes this really interesting is, well, if we were to put the stock horsepower figure at 64, after cutting this in half, we'd be left with 32. Though probably not exactly 32. I mean, a few of those 64 horses probably ran away long before we did our own detuning. Some of them ran, some of them died. I'm gonna call it 60. I am more than sure that at least 4 of them were dead, and so let's call it 30 horses. Now let's fire it up and see how the car drives on 30 horsepower. Man, that's even less than a year-old motorcycle has. But I mean, screw it, let's do this. It's all good, I'm in position. Now I'm gonna fire it up. The way it fires up, man. It runs. I can feel the body vibrating. We did cut out some of the crossmember to accommodate the new engine. Yeah, that has to be it. But it's definitely not something we should be worried about. Okay, here we go. Well, we are moving. We're rolling. Here we go. The car is moving. First gear. Second. It's definitely down on power. I'm pressing the gas pretty hard. And, well, the car is only moving. The engine does not feel even remotely strong. This thing does not rip. Okay, now at low revs, it does have trouble getting the car to move. But then in the mid-range, it does get the car to move. We start making some actual progress. Whoa, what's happening? Why is it sneezing? Keep the revs at base so that we don't crash. Maybe we should try and see what it does in third. I guess we drive a certain distance first. Though it's too bad I didn't take my phone with me. That means if something goes wrong, I'm walking. And something is bound to go wrong. I say we go ahead and find out. So I'm gonna go for a ride. The road here is pretty beat up. And I've stalled it. But a push start fired it right back up. Like with zero trouble. But I think I might want to go a bit faster. I mean, there is adequate torque in first and second. The engine is just lazy. It's not gonna get away from you. It's good for maintaining a leisurely pace. We are currently in second. And it's moving quite happily. Looking good. Nice. Alright, let's keep going. It seems as if something is a bit off, but okay. We've got backfiring in the carburetor. Yeah, it's hesitating, I see. Well, at least it moves once you build some revs. I mean, it's not easy to get there, but no worries. We are experiencing misfires, given that cylinders 1, 3, 4, and 2 are supposed to be firing. We're effectively missing a stroke. You know, it genuinely sounds like a factory OK engine. That also has a 2-cylinder, and this sounds very similar. It definitely struggles uphill. Wait, is it running hot? Yeah, that appears to be the case. I think the ignition needs to be adjusted. Oh, what's the matter with you? Come on, babe. Oh, come on, what's wrong? You can't be that hot, can you? Yeah, the carburetor is definitely acting up. What is it with you? It doesn't want to drive uphill. It's tired. Okay then. If you don't want to drive uphill, then let's go downhill. That should be easy enough. We simply flip around, and off we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the car refused to... It didn't want to go uphill. So it did make it up the short and steep incline, but the long one was too much. I guess the engine got too warm. Apparently the engine needs a bit of fine-tuning. Perhaps the valves need to be adjusted. Oh, for crying out. Come on now. You can do it. You're a Lada. Ladas have never failed us. And it won't this time either. Granted, 30 horsepower is not very much at all. Also, it's very hesitant to go uphill after it got warm. Oh no, look! It's giving it its all. Look at that. And good on it. I did say they've never failed us. Okay, second gear. Well, it moves. But only on a level surface. As soon as you hit a slight incline, it falls flat on its face. But then again, I mean, it does make sense why it would do that, with it having half the amount of cylinders. And so that's where we are with this experiment. What's that coming out of the exhaust? Hopefully that isn't steam. We should probably start it. I think that might be oil. There seems to be some blow-by. We didn't blow a gasket, did we? Though it's not like you can easily tell. Everything is okay on this end. Yeah, it looks great. Now it is smoking, but why is it? See what it's doing? It's spitting oil. Doesn't matter that it's spitting oil, or that we've got steam in the crankcase ventilation system. I mean, this was a ghetto engine conversion. As you just saw, the car does drive. And though it's very lazy when you give it the beans, it does make some progress. It does accelerate, albeit very slowly. After all, this engine has been detuned, with 2 cylinders surgically removed. Who said that this was impossible? Now, I did see the idea in the suggestion box. People were asking us to cut a motor in half. Not a lot of people, but a few. And even before, this was something we were meaning to try ourselves, to see whether it's even possible. This video proves that it very much is. If your engine is giving you trouble, we can help you. Drop us a line. Who knows, we might even help you reduce your fuel consumption. Or maybe not. You won't know for sure until you do some actual testing. Honestly, this is not an easy car to drive. In any case, we seem to be looking at a 107% success rate here. The engine runs, the car drives, and that's just very nice. And there you go, fellas. Have an engine that actually runs. And that's all I have for you. Watch us, subscribe, suggestions, comments, give us a big thumbs up. Maybe we should cut off another cylinder. I'm kidding. Once again, that'll be all. Watch, subscribe, suggestions, comments, give us a big thumbs up. Catch you later. Oh, it's cold outside.